Well, hello, Twitchmas people. Hi. So, for today, what I think we're gonna do is, we're gonna play a journaling game. So typically I do games with too many words in it. This is a game with very few words in it. You can find this amazing game at Anna Anthropy's website. Her itch page. She just put out a new what is the word? Zine that is all about how her wheelchair is a Gundam. And that is one of the drawings up in the top corner. So what we're going to play, hopefully together, as I get stuff together, here we go. What we're going to play, hopefully together, is a journaling game. She has a lot of these. And they're sort of like one-player tabletop role-playing games. And this one is called Tavern at the End of the World. And you use tarot cards and some coins. Oh, gosh. I actually have a coin, but I'm going to use a die and just do evens and odds. And, yeah. So let's get started. So we have a tavern, a public house. And there are a lot of words for this thing that we're going to run. The one that I like these days as occupiers' boots tramp through our streets is refuge. And, you know, it's Twitchmas. We offer a hard drink, a good meal, somewhere to hide, and other, more slippery things. Until they shut us down. So, you know, let's actually immediately start breaking the rules and start with the name of our Twitchmas Tavern. What kind of adjective do we want for our wonderful Twitchmas Tavern? Eels are slippery. I quite like them, except, okay, there's these kinds of eels that when they get upset, they just start, like, putting slime everywhere. Saucy. I like saucy. What else I like? Aha. Slimy. Rotund. I like that. Yeah. Cool. So what kind of thing is so fluffy and flabby and rotund and slimy? Only electric eels will electrocute you. Fluffy and slimy. This is a very uncomfortable texture. Cake? Yes, that is how all of my cakes come out, is fluffy and slimy. And maybe this is going to be our specialty. So we've got to think about some things with our tavern now. This is actually the hardest part of any of these games, is setting up the world. So the first question is actually a very, like, difficult question. So in the setup, there's occupiers' boots tramping through our streets. So what's occupying us? You know, are they armed and uniformed? Are they securing law and order? Are they trying to protect a rare resource? Are they protecting the faith. They're cyborgs. They're cyber Grinches? Yes. Okay. So we have cyber Grinches stealing presents and treating a dog badly and learning what it means to be Christmas. And that's just certainly something. So that's neat. I really like these cyber Grinches. I'm terrified that there are multiple Grinches. But you know, we're a bit slimy of a fluffy cake. So one of the big questions, you know, you got to make some money on the side. You can't do this all on your own. We can't make all of the bills just by our fluffy and slimy cakes at the Fluffy and Slimy Cake. So, in addition to food and rooms, what illicit service are we providing that the Cyber Grinches are trying to find, that they're trying to keep away from the people that we are celebrating Twitchmas with? We do give out really good hugs. I think hugs might win. I think if there's anything that is the true meaning of Twitchmas, hugs are very, very good. Bleak, but yes, we also need to have something that is worth something truly, you know, valuable, like a metaverse gift card. So we give out hugs and metaverse gift cards, and these cyber Grinches, they're trying to, you know, just shake us down all the time. But there's one more question that we need to answer. And that's what keeps our establishment off the occupation's radar, just for now. Is there like a hidden location? Is it just, you know, the true beauty and wondrousness of everybody coming together for Twitchmas? What possibly? Decoy Twitch streams? Just all of us just pretending to be MST3K? We're all AI, or so they think. I'm glad that Crate is hugging. This is truly what we give out that is so illicit. We have decoy streams and decoy hugs, keeping our establishment off the occupation's radar, just for now. So we're hiding away from these cyber Grinches. We're giving out hugs and metaverse gift cards under the table. We're making fluffy and slimy cakes for our people. But who are our people? I mean, there's something like 65 of us here. And so I think we need to start receiving visitors. And there's some rules to how the visitors work, but we'll deal with that later. So what I'm going to do is do some brief ASMR and hopefully shuffle my tarot deck. And my tarot deck is a little different than most people's, in that I got it from a local art collective and school and performance space and gallery space. here in town for me, AS220, and it's the Murmurations Community Tarot Project. I don't have the link offhand to see all the cards, but I will drop that link when I find it again. So I'm going to draw a card. I'm going to figure out how to draw a card. That'll be fun. And we drew the 8 of something. Sure would be good if I could spell. We drew the 8 of Cups. And their scans are a little crooked sometimes. Knocked me off. So, again, all the art here is either from the print version of this game or is Anna Anthropy's art. She's just really cool. I like it. So yeah, we have an 8 of Cups. And when the cups show up, this is a food critic. This is a drunk, a sailor, a widow, maybe a sometimes lover, a visionary, a toad. They're looking for the special, a romance, a drink. They're looking for something interesting. No, these are the good guys. These are the good guys. It's fine. So who is this person? And this is what the point of this is to just figure out who's coming to our bar. Who's coming to our tavern? Who's getting a fluffy and slimy cake? Who's getting a hug? They're looking for a special. They're looking for I don't know, something. So who is this person? And so we can look at this, maybe they're this is out on the ocean. There's like waves over there. So like maybe it's maybe it is a sailor. And they're a sailor yes. They're a sailor looking for romance. They're looking for the mermaid. Yeah, what happens to him? So he's getting catfished. He's sitting at our bar. He's stuffing a slimy cake in his mouth. He enjoys it, but he's in between sucking bites. And he pulls out a little bit of fluff from his mouth. And he's like, look, have you ever seen a mermaid out here? And I really love my bartender on duty. She's amazing, but she does have a habit of messing with the customers, and I wish she wouldn't, but she does tell him that the mermaid is coming tonight. And he's just sucking down these slimy cakes. It's both a drink and a meal all at once. And it's something where like I think this is good. I think this is a great person that we're helping, that we're I think he's great. So let's see who else is coming. We have the Ace of Swords. and swords. This is actually going to be an occupying soldier. This is going to be one of our horrible, horrible cyber Grinches, but he's off the clock. He's trying not to be this kind of person. You know, maybe he doesn't think that his heart has to be 3 sizes too small. And maybe he thinks that, like, this heart that he has can be helped by the cybers. It is still ACAB. That is true. That is true. You know, but I think he's looking to forget. I mean, I wish I could type and talk at the same time. I cannot. But he has a glitch that allows him to be curious. He's off the clock. He's trying to forget. And what do we give him? You know, actually, this guy is serving in the occupation, so I think we get to throw a coin. So what happens if we throw a coin is it's heads or tails. And that's odd, so I'm going to say odd is, I'm going to say odd is actually tails. So we've got one coin, and it's a tails, which means something. There are rules to this, I swear. It is a rare, enjoyable evening. You know, he's just sitting trying to have a great time. You know, he's talking to our bartender, and, like, he's laughing as he sees the sailor look over, expecting a mermaid to walk in at any time. As we all know, mermaids are extremely good runners. So I'm curious who else comes. And we have a very important person. We have the High Priestess coming in. The cake is very busy tonight. Look, it's a long kind of day. But we're popular. It's Twitchmas of all days. So we have the High Priestess. And I think they're I think they're really, really great, but the High Priestess is looking, honestly, for a fight. She sees this cyber Grinch. And she starts messing with this guy just out of nowhere. Yeah. She's boisterous. She's famous. I think we need to roll again. And you know what? She's the High Priestess. Of course the cyber Grinches are watching her. How could they not? So we have heads, and we have tails. So that means that actually one thing happens. One head means unwanted attention, gossip, veiled threats, surveillance. So what happens here? I think something weird happens. You know, I think the Cyber Grinches really are having a problem today. And that problem is this High Priestess. She's come in here, look at her, with an orb on her head, thinking that being a cat helps her position in any way. And I think between sitting there and you know, trying to provoke this poor guy, I mean, he's a Cyber Grinch, but, you know, everybody's a little different. And she slams down in the middle of their argument this orb that she's been carrying around on her head, balanced. And it cracks open. And in a moment, there is a flash. And everybody was laughing at this sailor when he came in. And what really happens is that in this smoke, in this flash, in this mist that comes out as this orb is broken, there is a vision of this mermaid, the real mermaid. And the sailor looks out into everybody and is awestruck. He cannot come up with anything to say with the love of his life appearing, really actually appearing. And in an instant, it's gone. And no one else has a word for what just happened, because mermaids stay in the metaverse. They don't come out. They don't show themselves. And someone else walks in. And I don't know what that means. But it is the Two of Wands. Whoops. And the Two of Wands, this is literally one of the most common people to come through at any time. You know, this is just a simple laborer. He rolls dung. Literally. You know, it's you think it would be a joke. But who else on Twitchmas deserves anything but those who roll dung, who have to work today, who can't celebrate with everybody? But everybody's looking for something. It's not, you know, everybody has a rich internal life. And he's actually got a meeting. Who's he meeting? Whoops. He's meeting the next visitor. He found something in the dung that he needs to speak to this person with. And he racks up and he's sitting at the table, and the bartender actually isn't as chummy with him. Gets him his meals, all that, perfectly polite. But who it really is that she's excited to see is the Ace of Pentacles. And this is actually one of the most famous people in town. This is a black market dealer. He goes from town to town. His home is here. We care about him. We love him. But we know what he does. And what this laborer does is he puts a coin, and no one's ever seen this coin before, on the table. And the black market dealer, he picks up this coin and he looks at the coin, and his face has the same look as the sailor who saw his mermaid, who saw his love. But no, this isn't the kind of love that one perfectly normal sailor has for a perfectly normal mermaid in the metaverse. This is actually a just purely covetous love. And he found the thing that he has been looking for. The thing... Yeah, he found this coin. The laborer found the coin in the dung. It's amazing. It is very lucky that the black market salesman has an extremely poor sense of smell. But here's the real problem. This black market dealer, he's very shady. He's very, very on the radar of everyone, and everyone knows who he is. He's not trying to hide who he is. Why would he do that? So we have to roll twice. And this black market dealer, miraculously, sitting right next to one of the cyber Grinches, doesn't pick up anything. We rolled 2 tails. I don't know how we did that, but we did. So he sits there, and he's loud, and everyone knows who he is. But he found what he is looking for. Twitchmas miracle occurs. And the laborer who rolls dung actually achieved what he's looking for too. Just a simple man, but he now has all the things that he needs after the deal with the black market dealer. He has everything that he can take home to his beautiful beetle wife. She has a gorgeous carapace, but it's dulled over the years. So he can now, tomorrow morning, go and get some beetle wax. But you'd think that a black market dealer would work alone. You'd think that he would, I don't know, have some discretion about what he does. But no. He's in fact joined by his business partner. which is honestly a man I don't think any of us would want to see. He's kind of dark looking in the sense of, well, his face is literally a skull. And, you know, this is why he's second in command. He can't do the finer deals as a skull. He quite literally can't kiss the ring, as it were. He does lack riz. But, you know, he's not here today to just be a helper. He's trying to hide. And he saddles up. And it is difficult for a man with no skin to hide. But what he's trying to do is get an inroad with our bartender. And our bartender's, you know, she gave such sass to the laborer who rolls dung. But no, this skull with bad breath, with no skin? I mean, he is a sweet talker. I mean, look at that pendant that he wears. But I don't know. And I think the shadiness that he carries with him is really the problem. And unfortunately, this isn't the same. This isn't like the easy deal, the wonderful... This isn't like the wonderful... the wonderful original black market dealer who could do things with such panache. It's not that he's really famous, but he's still very black market. And unfortunately, there's some gossip going around. And actually, I don't know. Are they? And after a moment, you watch as the bartender shouts out to the kitchen and a busboy comes out and tends bar. And you see the black market lackey and our bartender going behind the bar, going up to a room, going up the stairs, and the door shuts. And the bartender is hiding him away. In the tavern. The bartender and the King of Pentacles are hidden away, and no one actually has seized them for over an hour. Thank God we train our busboys so well. They can pour a beer. They can make a fluffy and slimy cake for anybody. And, you know, someone else comes in and orders something. And it's the Four of Cups. And with cups, just to remind us, and myself, you know, actually, the Four of Cups, he's a toad. Oh, wait. That's not the Four of Cups. That's the Four of Cups. And he's a toad. And, you know, it's fiber optics. He's a toad that lives in this greenhouse. And he just comes in and he asks for the fluffiest and slimiest cake. And 4 cups of milk. This is absolutely our most special, you know, thing that we make for any of our guests. You know, he's a toad. He's fine. We've all been toads sometimes. But as he chows down on this cake, this fluffy and slimy cake, you notice that the green of his skin starts to grow fur. And his face, his little toad smile, becomes twisted and curls at the ends. And you almost think that maybe his heart isn't 3 times bigger today. Maybe this toad is really one of the occupiers. And so, let's find out. But it's okay. There have been worse things. He sits and he sits at the bar and he eats his fluffy and slimy cake. He drinks his milk. And he ribbits along. I don't know. I'm a little concerned about this man, about this frog. Is there... I just can't shake this odd feeling about him. But, you know, he seems to be behaving himself. The other Cyber Grinch, the one off the clock, comes up to him and they're very, very concerned. They have a deep conversation. I do not know what to do with that information, Gene. But they're having this conversation, perhaps, you know, using the toad tongue to really make a difference in their communication issues. But that's okay. Because it is an exceedingly busy night. And the 6 of Swords comes in. I am not a Cyber Grinch. Please. I require your fluffiest and slimiest cake. If only someone could give me a slimy cake. the Six of Swords comes in, and you know, it takes a moment, but you see little drops of water coming off of this person. And they sit down at the bar and they look around. And they seem like they're looking for somebody, that they're trying to honestly, they're trying to share a wonderful Twitchmas time just with one person for the night. And they turn their head and they look and they see the Toad and the Cyber Grinch talking, and they shake their head and a fish falls out of their hair. And they turn and they see the black market dealer and the dung beetle still talking, laughing, enjoying themselves, and they shake their head again. And then they turn to the high priestess, and they look the high priestess up and down. They see how angry that she is, and that's just not the vibe that they're looking for. But then they look and they see the sailor, and she gasps, and you almost see a little bit of ink splatter out onto the table. It's wiped up quickly, it's no big deal. But you know, one of the things that she sees, one of the things that they see is this sailor, and they lift their drink off the bar. They swim through the crowd to get to this sailor. And the sailor seems at peace in a way that it's not being awestruck and maybe a little afraid. But they go off into a quiet corner. And they're there for a very long time. And nobody notices as slowly a few scales fall off everywhere she goes. And it's getting late, but I think there's one more person who comes through the door. And I think it's a very interesting person. And it's the Empress. And it is quite late at this point. I think it is Nina Simone. But it's honestly the real Empress, a legend walking among people. She sits down at the bar. She tries her best, but everybody knows who she is. I don't think anybody could say that they don't know the Empress. And unfortunately, she's not quite paying attention. She's just trying to have a good Twitchmas. But she sits next to the Toad and the off-duty Grinchman, Cyber Grinch. And they turn to her. And, you know, I don't really know. But they both watch her intently. They watch as she orders not a fluffy and slimy cake, but, a tea sandwich? And tea? She's clearly out of her element here, but she's trying so hard. It's been a long season. And what else is Twitchmas about but lightening the load a little bit for just a day? But unfortunately, they watch her so intently, and they stand up. The frog is now on the Cyber Grinch's shoulder. The frog is no longer a wonderful, smooth, bumpy, as frogs and toads often are, both smooth and bumpy at the same time. And they put a hand on her shoulder. And it's a quiet discussion. It is not a long one. It's not loud, it's not long, but the Empress, who all she wanted was just a little bit of time among her subjects, is taken away from the bar, is taken out of our tavern. And our bouncers, it's the Empress. We literally cannot touch her. We literally cannot stop this happening. We cannot be involved. But the Empress is arrested by the Cyber Grinch and the Toad. And now that's where we sit at the end of the night. I think everyone can see that it's probably time to go home. I think we've all been at a wonderful tavern of our own where maybe it's time. But let's think about the people that we got. That certainly hugs were exchanged. And certainly, you know, maybe a metaverse gift card was handed over. We had a sailor who came in and we laughed at him for looking for a mermaid. But when the High Priestess came, in maybe her lack of care, maybe just this was her plan all along, but she broke her orb and a mermaid appeared from it. Everyone was amazed, but not least the sailor. We had a Cyber Grinch who, try as he might, could not escape the limitations of his lot in life. He has a glitch. It's allowing him to be curious. He's trying to forget. And we had an enjoyable evening for a moment until he met up with the Toad. And between the Toad, who becomes a Cyber Grinch through eating too fluffy and too slimy a cake, he had to do what he had to do. There was also something else, though. There was the laborer just a normal person rolling dung who met with the famous black market dealer. And weirdly enough, his lackey came. And not only hid himself, but where is our bartender? Our busboy's getting a raise for sure. And before the horribleness with the Empress, our sailor actually got to meet his, hopefully, the mermaid that he was looking for. But I think it's time to realize that it is very hot. It's not a good thing going on. So I'm going to roll one more die. And this tells us what happens at the end of the night. At the end of the night, we're gone. We've closed shop. They come after speaking with the Empress. The Empress knew why she had to come to the fluffy and slimy cake on this Twitchmas. But, you know, maybe we thought too little of the lackey. Maybe we thought too little of our wonderful bartender who hid that lackey away, the King of Pentacles. And I think our bartender and the lackey cause a distraction. They burst out of the room. They realize what has happened. They can feel it in the air. It's almost like ozone or static electricity. And they turn to all of us and they say, it is absolutely time to go and time to celebrate somewhere else. Slowly, one of them kicks the jukebox and closing time comes on. And we think about all the things that we've done today. We think about playing a wonderful point and click where we probably should have put on a hat. We think about reading all sorts of stories and weird facts. We think about really getting our mind right and believing in our friend Trish. We think about Elf, and then we immediately put it out of our mind because Elf is terrible. And we think about, well, all the cyber Grinches. But the bartender and lackey scoot us out, feeling the fact that the heat is coming. And as soon as the last person leaves the fluffy and slimy cake, there's a slam through the back window. And the entire tavern is filled with not one, but hundreds of cyber Grinches. And it's a miracle. They have no presents to take away. They're left baffled. Why would the Empress come here? Why would this be where they have to raid? And there's only one reason why. And it's because it's a wonderful, wonderful Twitchmas. So, thank you all for saving our tavern because of Twitchmas. We all did it together. And thank you to literally everybody who has been doing this all day. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Moss. Thank you, Cloudnoon. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Blue. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Movie. And yeah, see y'all in chat. Doodles.